brought to you by some web hosting and domain names at ozsome.com. Good Wednesday morning. Clouds and showers expected today. A lot of moisture coming up from the south, and the temperatures in the low 50s. A chance of a few showers, then partly to mostly cloudy overnight in the low 40s. Partly to mostly sunny for a while Thursday, the first day of winter. It'll be in the low 60s. Then more showers late Thursday night into Friday, the high Friday around 60. Jonesboro's community radio station, we're KLEK 102.5 FM.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The European Commission is taking unprecedented steps against EU member Poland over judicial reforms that Brussels says threaten the rule of law. Brussels also says any transition period following the UK's exit from the EU should only last to December 2020. The European Court of Justice has ruled ride-hailing app Uber's a transport company, not a digital service, and the US Senate's approved the most sweeping overhaul of the US tax system in more than 3 decades.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM, good morning to you on your Wednesday. It's December 20th, 2017. This is Community Conversations. Kato Wonder is in the studio with you. I'm filling in for Quabila Harden, and our guest today is Mr. Bill Reznicek, and he is the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Jonesboro, and we're going to be talking about a variety of topics this morning. Of course, we're going to be talking about finance since that is his area of specialty, but we're going to talk about the city budget and how it kind of encompasses just about everything involved with the City of Jonesboro. So stay tuned. So how are you doing today, Mr. Reznicek?
I'm doing very well, and I appreciate you having me this morning.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here in the studio. So just kind of start off just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background, and how did you get to the City of Jonesboro?
Sure. My background was primarily in the corporate finance world. I had been in controllership and CFO roles for a number of companies. I was in private practice as a CPA in the Memphis area and moved to Jonesboro about a year ago, and initially opened a CPA office here, which I still have, but then when the opportunity at the city came along, it was of interest to me because it was in the area that I have been involved in the past in terms of being a CFO, and I also thought it'd be interesting to work in the government sector, which I had not done previously in my career.
Okay, so kind of talk about how was it to transition from the private sector to the public sector. Obviously, it's much different, being private practice, and the goal is to make obviously to earn a living by making money, but you switch over to the government sector and it's not as much as driven by profit, but you have to deal with more rules and regulations. So how was that? How was you able to transition into that role?
Sure, and you're right, that does present a transition going from the private sector to the public sector. And the thing that I've found unique about the public sector is that it encompasses a lot more rules and regulations in terms of what you can't do, both from the revenue and the expenditure side. But it's made the job very interesting. And I've also gained an appreciation for what goes on in government as a result, because again, most of my experience spent in the private sector, I really never got to peer into what went on the government side. So this has given me an opportunity to see that there actually are a lot of people in government, particularly in the city of Jonesboro, that are very passionate about making the city a better place to live and providing services and benefits to the citizens of Jonesboro. So, but the key thing in the transition has been the learning curve in terms of the legislative issues. In the private sector, you tend to have more freedom to do things on the appropriation and spending side, where in the government sector, everything is primarily driven by the budget and the requirement and the adherence to appropriation and spending relative to that budget. So, and the process of getting there, getting to a budget, going through the legislative steps, doing any amendments to the budget or any amendments to contractual things that we do. There's been a learning curve there for me as well, but I'm starting to feel comfortable in the environment. And the good thing is it's provided a challenge and an opportunity for me to learn and grow in an area that, again, I didn't have extensive expertise. So, it's always interesting and stimulating and motivating when you're doing something different and you feel like you're experiencing some growth and some new education in your career.
Well, and since you bring that up, of course, you actually have a lot more interaction with people, especially when it comes to city council meetings, which we'll kind of transition to. We had a city council meeting last night, and the 2018 budget was passed. And, of course, as we were mentioning off there was some concerns about the budget, and that's kind of part of your job now. You're dealing with concerned citizens who may like or dislike something in the budget, and I'm sure that you often get an earful or even an email inbox full of comments on things. So let's kind of touch on that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy to address that. I know there were some concerns relative to the budget being what we would consider a deficit budget, and that is to say that the budget is set up to spend in excess of what the anticipated revenues are, and that means you'll be pulling, or will be pulling, the money out of the cash reserves that the city has. So, rightly so, I can see concerns on the part of the citizens. There were some concerns on the part of council members relative to that. But at the same time, if you look at the budget as a whole, it really is a fairly conservative budget because the things that we're doing are really things that are overdue and are necessary.
Like, could you give some examples?
Sure. A couple of the projects that we're doing that are in the capital improvement section that are fairly significant. One would be the overpass at Highway 18, Nettleton, over the railroad track there. And that's something that has been overdue because it's really a safety issue. If you look at the time spent waiting there, both from the traffic being backed up and being a nuisance, but more from the standpoint of, in the event you would need to get emergency vehicles across those tracks to the industrial park, for example, there can be a delay sometimes, of 10 or 15 minutes, which could be critical in some situations. So that's a project that really is long overdue because it has restricted the flow of traffic to that side of town. A couple of the other projects that kind of fall under that same type of issue is the expansion of Bowling Street for University Heights School. Currently, that school is only serviced by one road of ingress-egress, and in an emergency situation, that would cause a bottleneck and really restrict first responders' ability to make the scene if something were to happen there. So that's an important project that we need to get done. Another one would be the beginning planning phase for the expansion of Caraway Road. And
that's actually planned. I definitely want to hear about this one.
Yeah, Caraway Road is obviously a major thoroughfare when you cross the bypass. Now the two-lane road there that runs out to Southside Ballpark, Miracle League, is really inadequate for the traffic flow. So it's been something that the city has basically had on the back burner for some period of time. So this coming year, we do have $500,000 appropriated for the planning phase of that. Now, that's only the planning phase. The actual implementation and construction will be begin in 2019.
Okay, and you said this is the section from the overpass down to, can I refresh my memory?
It's going to be about a 2-mile leg from the overpass. I don't know exactly, it depends on what the planning comes back with, how far we'll go with that, but it will at least go past the Southside Ball Fields, Miracle League, that area.
Okay, well, that's definitely something that's needed. In fact, probably a few years down the line, may need to expand the rest of Caraway as well, because, like we was mentioning off the air, the city has grown so fast that the traffic hasn't been able to keep up. And I guess in a way that can actually tie into what you do for a living, because as the city grows, there's going to be more people, more needs for revenue. And so are you already thinking ahead in your position as CFO toward the future of Jonesboro? And if so, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I think as the city grows, we're going to need more talent to manage various projects, the growth of the city, managing the infrastructure. So I think there'll be opportunity for people in a variety of fields. And the other thing about Jonesboro that we need to develop is the ability to recruit talent into the area. And a lot of that stems from being able to provide quality of life. So if you look at the things we're doing, improving the infrastructure, doing things to improve quality of life, it creates an environment where you can foster that growth, bring in additional talent, and that in and of itself facilitates that future growth.
So what steps is the city taking to attract that talent?
Well, we're partnering with ASU on some projects. For example, the pedestrian bike path that we've got a funding grant for to open that corridor between the university and downtown, which we feel like will make both ASU more attractive to prospective students, and then in turn, hopefully we can keep some of that education talent in the city. And it also fosters growth in our downtown area. And if you look at the demographics of cities that are successful now, they're attracting the 20, 30 somethings who are looking for that downtown urban lifestyle with a lot of pedestrian and bike type of activities. So that's one of the concepts that we have for the city. And when you do that in turn, then you can attract that talent and retain that talent in your city and begin to grow in terms of providing jobs that are higher paying jobs, technically trained people, and that's really the challenge for cities, is being able to recruit those type of people and that type of talent, because that's where you increase your overall economic growth to a city and your tax base, and there's a lot of things. It creates a bit of a domino effect when you can do that. So that's part of our vision. And if you look at the budget, some of the other things that we're doing, for example, is we're spending some additional money at Joe Mack Campbell Park. We're spending some money at Craighead Forest Park, and those are projects that we look at as quality of life issues, as well as some of the infrastructure projects, which obviously, we were talking before we went on air about the traffic situation in Jonesboro. Respective to other major metropolitan areas, it may not be as bad, but for people that have been residents of Jonesboro for some time, it's easy to see where there's some frustration with traffic situations that we have now. One of the other things that we're doing is we're looking at some additional turn lanes next year on Caraway Road and Redwell Boulevard to try to alleviate some of the traffic congestion there. So there's a lot of emphasis in the planning and the budget in terms of trying to improve the infrastructure of the city, and in turn, at the same time, improve the quality of life for the citizens.
Now, when you mention quality of life, part of that also includes entertainment. Now, I know that the city government doesn't directly get involved with entertainment, but I do know that Mayor Perrin is very big on public-private partnerships to attract things such as entertainment. So do you work alongside Mayor Perrin in those endeavors to try to forge those public-private partnerships to attract entertainment so that it can go toward increasing the quality of life?
Absolutely. We've spent a good bit of time talking to people, both in our community and outside of the community, on what they're doing for example, downtown growth, and that's an area that we still feel like we can capitalize on in Jonesboro. We've got a very nice downtown area. It's very vibrant, but there's a lot more things we could do, and that would be a good place for an entertainment district. We also have the new convention center that's being built adjacent to ASU that will provide some additional opportunities for entertainment in conjunction with the convocation center there at ASU. So, definitely one of the themes that we have in the municipal center is this idea of partnering with private business, because a lot of times, whether or not the funding comes from the government, the ideas, the impetus to get some of these things done can also be driven as well from the private sector. So we absolutely look for those partnerships, and we feel like those are critical to the growth of our city, and we're finding that other cities are capitalizing on those same type of plans and same type of philosophies.
Once again, we're speaking with Mr. Bill Reznicek. He is the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Jonesboro, and he actually had to help me to pronounce his name right when we got there, so I've actually got on my note card, Reznicek. Of course, I know how it is to mispronounce someone's name, so I like to at least always try to get someone's name right when we have them on the air. We are speaking with him about all matters concerning the City of Jonesboro, and of course, if you have a question for Mr. Reznicek, you can give us a call at 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080, or you can leave your questions or your comments on our Facebook Live feed. So let's talk about a typical day for you. You get up in the morning, you arrive to work. What's a typical day for you, like from the moment you walk in the door to the moment you walk out the door?
Typical day, usually I see, what my staff is working on, and then follow up on any projects that I've given them. We generally have issues come up related to things that are going on with various committee meetings. If we, for example, have a finance committee meeting, we'll be looking out to what the agenda is and what legislative items in terms of resolutions and ordinances that we need to have on that agenda. If we have that information ready to put into our legislative software. So we spend some time on that. I also spend time interfacing with the folks in the Human Resources Department just on typical HR issues, looking at employment issues, changes that we may be making or need to make. I also have the Collections Department that reports to me, so I'm generally following up and seeing where we're at on collecting various fees and contractual things. So I usually try to have my finger on the pulse of that. I have the IT department that reports to me, so I generally have some interaction with them daily. And I also have the Grants and Community Development Department reporting to me, so there's generally some things that we're working on, looking at in terms of grants and community development, so typically following up on that, and generally spend some time working and meeting with my peers, and generally spend some time with the mayor each day, just going over things, debriefing on various things that we're working on. So it's, I can tell you the days really fly by. Sometimes I look at my watch or look at the clock, and I'm amazed it's 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, and I have no idea where the time's gone. So definitely always a full day, and there's always something new on the horizon. It's never dull. It's never monotonous. There's always some new issues to tackle, and so it makes for actually a very rewarding and exciting work environment.
Well, and you mentioned that you work with the grants department. Does your department, as far as grants, I know you work on getting grants for the city, but as far as the community development arm, do you work with local nonprofits to help them to carry out their missions?
Yeah, we do. Our folks, will work with and reach out to nonprofits and interact with them. Obviously, as you said, we have grants, so We try to work with both on the grant side and then the nonprofit side, and also looking at hopefully some private foundation money. But the whole idea is to try to capitalize on the use of the funding from the grants as well as the nonprofit organizations to provide services to the citizens of Jonesboro. We do work with people that have issues in terms of homelessness, low-income individuals, and try to assist them with various programs. So that's actually a very rewarding part of the job when you can help people on an individual basis or groups and segments of people, and you know that you've impacted and touched lives individually. It's pretty rewarding to be a part of that.
I imagine that's actually challenging, though, however, dealing with the homeless issue. Of course, Mayor Perrin and along with Sheriff Boyd attempted to create a homeless shelter over on the north side of the former nursing home, and it was unsuccessful due to some local opposition. I know Sheriff Boyd has run into opposition with some other places he has looked at. So it's actually been a challenge to actually try to do more to help the homeless, but hopefully the city can find or Sheriff Boyd can find a facility that can be acceptable to the community and that can also address the need of those as well. But we don't have a lot of time left in this segment, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to go to a break. We're speaking with Mr. Bill Reznicek. He is the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Jonesboro. And when we come back, we will have more with him. Don't go anywhere. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Are you equipped to protect your child from stress? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. A recent study from the University of Florida revealed that major childhood stresses like divorce, exposure to substance abuse, and economic hardship have an almost immediate negative impact on a child's health. So, what can you do? First, protect your child from the stress of divorce. Sometimes divorce is beyond the control of a spouse. However, there are times when couples all too quickly buy into the myth that we fight a lot, so the children will be better off if we just split up. Arguing isn't ideal, but divorce can be worse. Second, protect your child from the impact of substance abuse. You can hide that abuse from some, but not from your kids. So get help before it hurts. Remember, your family first.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
For almost 3 years, KLEK 102.5 FM has brought you the music you love on your radio, on your computer, and on your phone. Now, we want to bring the music to your party, wedding, or any event. KLEK now offers DJ services for all occasions with over 22 years of DJ and broadcast experience. We can also announce your event on KLEK. Need a photographer for that special occasion? We got that covered too. Package deals available. Book us for DJ, photography, or for both for your event today. Call 870-203-9951 or look us up on social media at KLEK FM.
Karaoke and photo booths with a custom design of your event are also available.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
This Christmas, Sonia Sanders with ERA Doty Real Estate hopes that you and yours will be touched by the real meaning of Christmas. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. As we remember the greatest gift of all time, we wish you and your loved ones a blessed Christmas and a blessed New Year in 2018.
Do you like the music you hear on KLEK 102.5 FM? Do you like the educational programming that we provide? Do you like the service we provide to the community? Do you like having a station to finally call your own that represents you? If so, please stop by or call any of our underwriters or sponsors that you hear on KLEK and tell them thank you for their support. The support of our underwriters and sponsors is vital for us to stay on the air, so be sure to let them know that you thank them for their support.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations with our guest, Mr. Bill Reznicek. He is the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Jonesboro, and we've been talking with him about all matters regarding the City of Jonesboro, and we're certainly glad to have him in the studio today. So once again, if you have a question or a call for him, you can call us at 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080, or you can weigh in on our Facebook Live feed. So, Mr. Reznicek, let's talk about your interaction with the City Council. Obviously, the City Council has to approve all of the major decisions for the city. So let's talk about your relationship with them.
Sure. I think so far my experience has been that it's a very well-versed, well-educated group of people that understand the needs of the city. They are obviously concerned about their individual constituency and trying to do the right things for their wards as well as for the city overall. So, I've got a lot of respect for them. The mayor and I, sometimes refer to them as our board of directors, which would be basically the equivalent in the private sector, which is, people that are in an advisory capacity as well as people that are in a approval capacity. So far, I've been very pleased from, my interaction with them, my relationship. I've worked closely with some members, or more closely with some members than others, but in general, as I sit in the meetings and I watch, what's going on from the legislative process, again, I see a group of individuals that definitely clearly have a passion for the city and a passion for the citizens, and want to do the right things by their constituency.
And of course, getting back to the city council, or continuing on with the city council, I should say that I know the city council has several committees, and I believe one of the committees is the finance committee. So let's talk about a little bit of your work with the finance committee of the council, because that gives you a chance to a little bit more intimately interact with those members of the city council.
Sure, yeah, and my primary interaction there is with the chairman of the finance committee, Joe Hafner, and so Joe and I, talk typically at least once a week. Joe was pretty instrumental as we were wrapping up the budget. We had some late night meetings with Joe, just kind of going through and crunching the final numbers. And Joe's got a financial background, so he's somebody that I can converse with fairly easily, and he understands kind of the world I'm operating in, is very helpful, as a sounding board, as well as from, getting things through in the finance committee and through the council. So So it's a good process that we go through, because we get the selection in the committee of the legislation that we want to move forward to the council. And typically, if the finance committee has looked at what we're submitting and has reviewed it and approved it, it makes it easier to pass through the council, because there's some value and integrity given to the individual committees, such as the finance committee. So far my relationship, and that with that committee, and particularly with Joe, has been an excellent relationship and a very, very helpful one.
Okay, and speaking of relationships, I'm actually looking on the City of Jonesboro website, which is jonesboro.org. So I'm seeing a whole list of different people on here. So I'm going to kind of go down this list and just kind of talk about how you interact with each and every one of these. So let's start with the city attorney, Carol Duncan. I'm sure that you probably have to confer with her a lot, because as you mentioned earlier in the show, dealing with government and legislative matters and more legal matters. So I'm sure she is a great resource to help you do your job.
Absolutely. I talk to Carol on a regular basis. In fact, we had lunch yesterday with the mayor, going over some issues related to the council meeting last night. Typically, when we have issues that we're unclear about how to move forward on a legislative basis, we'll contact Carol. Or if there's issues of a contractual nature, I'll reach out to her, contact her, and ask for her advice and assistance on that. So she has an excellent staff. She has a assistant city attorney that works for her, Jennifer, and she does an excellent job as well. So we do spend a good bit of time working with her in my department and the mayor's department as well. So we all interact collectively at the end of the day, again, for what's best for the citizens of Jonesboro.
Okay, and what about, and the next on our list is E911, which we've had Mr. Jeff Presley on the show several times, and I know he does a lot to make sure that the city stays safe, working with the first responders.
Yeah, and Jeff and I have a good working relationship. I've had some interaction with him recently related to the budget and some other issues. And I've been over and visited the dispatch center, 911 center, on a couple of occasions. So I have a lot of respect for the work that they do. He's got an excellent staff of people, and I really take my hat off to them, the shifts that they work and their dedication as well. He's got a lot of seniority in that department. So I have a lot of respect for Jeff and his department as a whole.
And which brings us next to the police and fire department.
And on both those departments, I've had very good interaction and working relationships with both Chief Elliott and Chief Miller. I've had the opportunity to ride with Chief Elliott on a couple occasions, essentially a tour of the city, to kind of bring me up to speed on what they're looking at from the perspective of the police department and policing crime throughout Jonesboro. So it was very educational for me. The opportunity to talk with individual officers as we did that really gave me a great perspective, both in terms of just doing my job day to day, as well as what their budgetary needs were. I also spent some time with Chief Miller and took a tour of the fire stations early on in my tenure here. And again, that gave me a good perspective on the challenges faced by the fire department, what their growth needs are for the future. So, and I generally interact with both Chief Elliott and Chief Miller almost on a daily basis, either on the phone or they drop by my office. So we have a very good, very cordial working relationship.
So when you got to ride with Chief Elliott, did y'all experience anything fun? The reason why I asked that because I did Chief Elliott's Citizens Police Academy, and I got to do ride-alongs with officers doing that, and it was definitely an eye-opening experience. So did you experience anything eye-opening when you rode with Chief Elliott?
One night that I rode, we had a little excitement out on Southwest Drive. There was a stolen truck, and they were looking for the individual. So that was got the blood pumping a little bit. But other than that, it was fairly quiet the nights we rode. So, which did give us a good opportunity to visit and talk about the needs of the police department, and gave him an opportunity to give me a good tour of the city, which I hadn't really had before.
Oh, well, definitely sounds like it was an interesting experience. And now I'm looking at Parks and Recs and and of course we've had Mr. Huffstetler in the studio before. And Parks and Rec is definitely something that he's passionate about, and something that the mayor is working hard to improve the quality of. So, kind of, what is your involvement with Parks and Rec?
I have a pretty extensive involvement with them. I interact with Wixon almost day to day, and because a lot of our budget is driven or is incorporated with Parks and Rec, and I've spent a good bit of time with Wixon out driving the city, going out to Craighead Forest, looking at different projects that were going on. So Wixon does an outstanding job of promoting Parks and Rec. He has an excellent comprehension of what the needs are for the city. And he's one of those people that's excellent, has excellent people skills. And so he's an ideal person in that position. And really, I enjoy my interaction with him. Do get out quite a bit to their facilities.
And that's certainly a good thing, and they definitely do have some very nice facilities, and of course we encourage each and every one of you to check out those facilities. So let's back up to the police a little bit, because one of the things a couple years back, they had the raises. It first started off with the police department, and then it was expanded to others as well. But this is in part of the reason why there is a budget shortfall, because reserve money has to be dug into in order to pay for these increased salaries. And Mayor Perrin, even on this show, has said at some point, something's going to have to be done because the reserves are going to run out. So as CFO, what do you foresee is going to have to be done to address this situation, for us either raising revenue or making possible cuts?
Sure. When you are challenged with a situation where the city is growing the way it is, and you're having to present a deficit budget to the council, obviously, no one likes to do that. And at some point, you have to look at either increased revenues or spending cuts, because you can't go on indefinitely with deficit spending. So, the things we'll have to look at on the spending side are cuts in capital improvement projects. We may have to delay projects or pare back our plans in some areas. And then on the O&M side, the primary driver on that is employees, expenses, salaries, benefits. So, that's an area when you get into that, then, obviously you're looking at whether or not, you can do the job with fewer people. And that's usually the least of your desirable options. And, when I look around at the various departments in the city, I don't see a lot of room to cut staff. Most people are actually quite lean in their department. So I think, then we would need to be looking at other areas where we could cut expenses, whether they're in maintenance contracts, some of the work that we do in terms of just general street and sidewalk construction and maintenance. There's kind of a approach where you look at everything, and nothing's off the table, but then you have to triage, if you will, what makes the most sense to cut first, the things that you can live without. So there could come a point where we have to do that. I've been in situations before in the private sector where we had to do that to some extent, sometimes drastically. There are things that you never want to do, but sometimes just out of necessity, you have to take a hard look at where you're spending the money. Now, on the flip side of that, the other option is to increase your revenues. And for the city, we have a variety of sources of revenue. And one of the things that we're looking at is where we're at in terms of our franchise fees and what we're collecting from service providers like Suddenlink, Ritter, CenterPoint Energy, and we always want to make sure that we're maximizing the return on the infrastructure that we've got and people's utilization of that. So we're looking at that. We're looking at improving our auditing techniques for that, as well as on liquor license, on hotel tax. So there could be some source of additional revenues there. And then this past budget cycle, we increased the privilege license fees, which is something that hadn't been done in about 25 years. So that will give us some additional revenue. So just doing things like that, where we start to really peel away the layers of the onion and look at what areas we might be able to improve revenue sources from, where perhaps in the past it wasn't looked at quite as closely because there just wasn't a necessity for it. So it's kind of an all-in approach. I mean, when you do that, you want to look at both sides of the coin. You want to look at the revenue side, the expenditure side, and see where you can gain some benefits on both sides, and hopefully it all meets in the middle where you need to be.
Once again, we're speaking with Mr. Bill Reznicek, the CFO of the City of Jonesboro. So getting back into the budget that passed last night, so what are some of the other highlights of the budget? You mentioned that the privilege fees were increased. Are there any other particular highlights that are in the new budget that's coming up for 2018?
I think the major capital improvement projects that I mentioned were some additional things that we're doing. We are astroturfing the Joe Mack Campbell facility. 10 of the fields there will have turf this spring, which will give us the ability to play tournaments during the rainy season. Before, those fields would flood out and we wouldn't be able to host tournaments, but now we'll have better drainage, and those fields would be capable of drying them off so we can have tournaments. So that's a project we're excited about. Of course, we've been doing a lot of work at Craighead Forest Park. We've got some plans to expand the camping facilities there. We're also going to put in a pump track facility for people that like to mountain bike. It's kind of a specialized hybrid type of mountain bike track that's going to go there. We're pretty excited about that. And then also some additional work on, as I mentioned, the pedestrian bike lanes. So there's a lot of projects throughout the city that are in the budget, and if you go online, you can look at the budget. You can look at the capital improvement project.
Is it already up on the website?
Yeah, it's up on the website, and you can see where those capital improvement projects are at. You can look at how they might impact your area or things that you like to do as far as park and recreation type of activities.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the website. I see 2018, but I'm guessing 2017. I'm guessing 2018 will be uploaded probably.
Oh, yeah, it should be up today. I apologize. If it's not up already, it'll be up today.
Okay, so definitely if you want to check it out, just go to jonesboro.org and you can check it out and go through it. And of course, if someone does go through the budget and they won't have a question or something about it, how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. They can call the Municipal Center and ask to speak to myself or one of the people in my department, but I'll be happy to talk to anyone directly that has a question. If I'm not in my office, leave me a voicemail and I will be glad to return your call. I pride myself in being very accessible to folks.
And do you have an email as well you can be reached?
Yeah, you can reach me at my last name, Reznicek, at jonesboro.org.
Can you give it one more time?
Okay, it's Reznicek at jonesboro.org.
And going on into our next issue, planning and zoning. Of course, that is a hot topic around the city of Jonesboro. Jonesboro is growing. A lot of things are being built. A lot of people want to build things in Jonesboro, and of course, there's a process that's involved with getting approval for that. And sometimes when people want to build things, there are some people who say, well, wait a minute, we're not in favor of this. And some things have actually been shot down because of that. So how does your office interact with planning and zoning?
We have some interaction, not a lot. We get involved, just primarily from the budgeting process and funding their department. So we haven't had a lot of direct involvement with them on those topics.
Okay, and getting back to our list of different departments, what about the city clerk?
Yeah, we interact with the city clerk on a fairly regular basis. They assist us with entering legislation into the system, making sure that we have the resolutions and ordinances worded and entered correctly. Also on researching any past ordinance and resolutions, any legislations that has occurred in the past. Donna has an excellent staff who's been very helpful in providing assistance, and as well as training on utilizing the resource tool that we have for researching our legislation and entering legislation into the system. And that's been something that, as we mentioned earlier in the show, has been a learning curve for me, was that whole issue of having to go through the legislative process for the appropriations and spending. So Donna and her staff have been excellent in terms of providing support to my department for that.
Well, it's certainly good that you have a good relationship with not just her, but with all of the various department heads in the city of Jonesboro. We're going to get ready to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what are some of your future goals in your position as Chief Financial Officer of the city of Jonesboro. We're speaking with Mr. Bill Reznicek, CFO of the city of Jonesboro. Don't go anywhere. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Our Think Wealthy Quote of the Week comes from author and financial educator Sabrina Lamb, author of Do I Look Like an ATM? A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible African American Children. Lamb says avoiding or refusing opportunities to teach children about money and to take loving care of yourself will result in your children becoming manipulative and selfish adults who lack the tools to survive and prosper in the world. I am in total agreement with Lamb, who teaches financial literacy to children as the CEO of the nonprofit worldofmoney.org. The perfect recipe for creating selfish, needy, bitter, and resentful children is to just give them anything they want. Unfortunately, too many of us believe that being a great parent means giving to our children, when parenting is really about teaching our children the skills they'll need to provide for themselves. This includes helping them to learn the importance of earning and managing money. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Meineke of Jonesboro is now Starks Auto Service, a full-service auto repair and vehicle maintenance center offering engine and transmission repair, brake service, tires, oil changes, and more, performed by ASE certified mechanics. The all-new Starks Auto Service, 2813 South Caraway Road in Jonesboro, 870-204-7112. Starks Auto Service, Jonesboro.com.
KLEK 102.5 FM is giving you more praise. That's right. Starting Wednesday, January 3rd, KLEK brings to you All Gospel Wednesdays, every Wednesday from 5 a.m. till 7 p.m. Enjoy all of your favorite gospel hits and get your praise on all day long with Cheryl Underwood Radio in the morning, Brother Cobbs during the day, and Hezekiah Walker to take you into your local church Bible study. Plus, the return of the KLEK Praise Break. Lift up your hands, rejoice, and praise Him all day, all Wednesday, every Wednesday on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Craighead County Clerk Cade Holliday hopes that you and your loved ones will enjoy the special gifts of this Christmas and holiday season. The gift of love, the gift of peace, the gift of happiness. Christmas and the holidays are not only a time for spreading a message of cheer and goodwill, but also a time to say thank you to the citizens of Craighead County. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you from Craighead County Clerk Cade Holliday.
The key to making this station even better could be parked in your driveway right now. Donate your old car to us, you'll get a tax deduction, and we'll tow it away for free.
Go to klekfm.org for more information. Support for KLEK is brought to you by
Fullness of Joy Ministries, 2120 Thorn Street, Jonesboro, under the direction of Bishop Adrian Rogers and co-pastor Susan Rogers. www.fjministries.org.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations with our guest, Mr. Bill Reznicek. He is the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Jonesboro, and we've been talking about not just his position as CFO, but we've been talking about a little bit of everything involving the City of Jonesboro, his job, even though he's primarily responsible for finance, but he has interaction with so many other departments. It's all kind of like a system that works together, and all the parts have to be in harmony for the city to run smoothly. And of course, Mr. Reznicek has been in his position about 3 months, so he's still learning the position, still learning the ins and outs of it. But as each day goes by, he discovers more and more. So with that, I want to ask my next question. So as you move forward in your position, what are some of your goals for your position and for the City of Jonesboro?
Sure. As far as goals, for the finance department, I would like to challenge the group of individuals to find, opportunities, as we were talking before, for, increasing revenues, and making sure that on the appropriation expenditure side that we're spending the taxpayers' money efficiently and wisely. I think since we have access to the information on what's being spent, where, and why, that we can provide some analysis and make sure that we're getting the best utilization of the taxpayers' resources, because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' money that's funding all of these projects and funding the city. And I think we're cognizant of that fact and respectful of that fact. So that's one of the challenges that I have for the people in the finance and accounting area. The other area that I have under my control, and somewhat of a dual reporting situation with the mayor, as well as the grants and community development. And I think that's a department that we can really challenge. We've got some excellent leadership in there with Tiffany Calloway, and challenge them in terms both of the grants and maybe some private foundation money, because they can directly impact the citizens of Jonesboro. They do a lot of work and outreach to, again, the homeless and the people in the lower income areas. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit at the break was the land bank that was approved in the budget. And one of their goals and missions is to acquire some of the property in the blighted areas and try to convert that into, whether it's single family homes or multifamily residential type of living facilities, or possibly could be commercial, retail, restaurant type of property. But in the end, take property that now is condemnable or has already been condemned, tore down, or in some cases vacant lots, and get developers to come in and do something with that property. We were talking about the north side And that's an area that we know needs some target and focus, because that's, it's the parts of Jonesboro where we have those issues and we want to do some revitalization. So I think we've got the talent in the municipal center and a variety of departments to make those things happen. We were talking about the planning and zoning department earlier. They're certainly involved in that. So there's a lot of people that have a common vision. I know the mayor, one of his visions is to reduce the poverty level overall in Jonesboro, and to try to get that percentage of people living in poverty down to whatever extent we can. And that starts to happen through, a combination of education, giving people the leg up and the assistance that they need, and then providing housing for them, affordable housing, good housing, that they can be proud of, that will revitalize communities. So I think that's very important. I think if you were to sit down with the people in the municipal center that are driving that, you'll find that they're very passionate about those type of programs and projects, and they have a vision for that for the city of Jonesboro, which is, it's been very refreshing for me coming into the position to find that kind of mindset and mentality.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing the things that you do in your position, and definitely wish you all the best as you do what you can to help to grow this city forward and to make it a better place. We've got 2.5 minutes left, so I do have one last question. The north side of Jonesboro, that's something that a lot of people are concerned about. Any plans to use your position to try to help improve the north side of town?
Yeah, I think that's an area that as we go through the next budget cycle, we're going to have to put some target projects and emphasis in that area, and I think also in the community development side, that's an area that certainly we've got our eye on and want to do more to help improve that area. So, it's something that everybody has on their radar, absolutely, and I think again, the passion and the desire to get those type of projects and those type of revitalizations lies within the people in the city.
Well, like I said, definitely stay tuned. Of course, for those you on the north side, or no matter what side of town you are in, if you are concerned about things going on, make your voice known. These are your city officials. They work for you. They are accessible. Go down to City Hall, ask to speak to them, make an appointment, send them an email, give them a call, attend a city council meeting, make your voice known, because they don't know if you don't tell them. So definitely make your voice known, make your voice heard, so that you can do your part to help make this city a better place. We want to thank Mr. Reznicek for stopping by the studio today, taking an hour out of his busy schedule to talk to us about all of the things going on with the city of Jonesboro, as well as his position. Of course, he's welcome to come back to the studio at any time, and we hope to have him back on in the near future. So you guys have a great and blessed day, and if you want to, you can check me out. I will be on KAIT at 11 o'clock for Diana Davis with Midday. Me and Dante Barker, we're going to talk about the KLEK and North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative Kwanzaa celebration. So you'll actually get to see me dressed in my African attire. So you can check that out on KAIT at 11 o'clock a.m. I'm going to go ahead and get up off of here and get up out of here. You guys have a great and blessed day. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.